pandemic, then the war in Ukraine, and mainly because of that, as we can see that over the past few years, almost all Europeans have felt the pinch of the cost of living crisis. Now let's have a look at the debt to GDP ratio in the Eurozone. Starting in 2020, when COVID-19 spread to Europe, the region's debt to GDP ratio surpassed 97% and it's come down a little bit since then, but it's still over 90% in general. Likewise, inflation rates in the EU have been rising since the start of the pandemic, and the number went through the roof in 2022 after the war in Ukraine broke out. But wage growth hasn't caught up with inflation, as we can see in the figures from 2021 and 2022. So what's the impact of all of this on government spending on vital public services? Our correspondents across Europe have been taking a look. In Italy, Giles Gibson reports on how the healthcare system is faring. And in Hungary, Pablo Gutierrez reports on measures the government is taking to help put money in people's pockets. And in Germany, Natalie Carney examines defense spending in this time of economic turmoil. So first, let's go to Giles in Rome.
During the coronavirus pandemic, doctors in Italy were quite literally applauded for their service, with people clapping from their balconies or their windows. But just this month, doctors have been protesting, saying that they're working long hours without the necessary equipment. Now, the government says that simply pumping extra cash into the system is not going to solve long waiting times or staff shortages. It says that structural reforms are needed.
Most items in this grocery store cost a lot more than they did a year ago. The cost of living crisis is getting hard to ignore, and those with the lowest salaries are feeling the most pain. Year-on-year inflation in Hungary is 33%, but some common items cost a lot more. A slab of butter, a pack of cheese, and a loaf of bread will cost you the equivalent of $7.18 more than they did a year ago. And to make matters worse, soaring energy costs during the winter depleted many people's savings. So the Hungarian government put together a series of measures to try to shield consumers from inflation, including controversial price caps. But voters and also many businesses are calling for more to be done.
In the past, Berlin had a tradition of underfunding its army as it focused on rebuilding its post-war economy. Yet the conflict in Ukraine has changed that, and now military funding has become a main focus of Germany's budget. Berlin has already committed 100 billion euros to strengthening its military capabilities and has also reconfirmed its commitment to NATO's 2% of GDP dedicated to it. At the same time, Germany is also one of the largest weapons supplier to Ukraine, spending millions of euros on tanks and ammunitions for the front lines. Yet in this post-COVID economy struggling with inflation, which reached double digits last year, the idea of how much Berlin should spend on its military is still a very contentious topic within the coalition government and out on the streets.
The 2% is an agreement amongst European countries, so we should stick to it, even as Germans.
When you can't afford everything, in my opinion, it's more important to ensure safety. Everything else depends on it. All these measures can only be afforded if there is peace.
I'm of the opinion that there are more important things. I think the more we gear up, the more dangerous it gets for me personally. And that's why I think we should put that money into our healthcare system, the youth, and above all, the money should go to help the homeless people.